All right, Travis, I'm so excited for this session. We're going to go ahead and switch over here to show your page that you shared. Now, tell me a little bit about yourself. You said that your goal was to gain skills to become a professional VFX artist. Do you mind elaborating? Like, what can I do today to help you get there? Like, where are you trying to head to, and where have you been so far?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is in acting. I really wanted to be a movie star growing up and found out how difficult it was to make it into that kind of field. So I wanted to be involved in the entertainment industry and somehow, and I landed on visual effects maybe about a year and a half ago when I was waiting tables and somebody pitched, "Oh yeah, do it for games." So from then on, it's just jumped in and I started teaching myself through online communities and YouTube videos, and it's been a whirlwind of a journey so far.
Awesome. That's great. So you like so many of us are just diving in online and trying to figure it out step by step. A lot of people kind of just found their way into it, like, oh, that's a thing, and then it turns out I'm just going to do this full time now. That's cool. So as we're going through your stuff today, like, what are your aspirations more specifically? Do you have a specific kind of studio that you're headed for, or anything like that?
Yeah, so as I've been able to experiment and just kind of learn the basics of what visual effects makes up for, specifically in real time, um, and specifically taking your class and kind of being able to see the different sides of it, I've really found myself gravitating more and more towards stylized effects and kind
Okay.
of almost, I don't want to say in the 2D space, but I really kind of like that feel of the effects. Um, and when it comes to where do I want to work, I guess it kind of comes down to genres, right? Like what kind of games do I like playing?
Hmm.
For me, it's RPGs and MOBAs seem to be the two big categories. MMOs have always caught my attention. So kind of that fantasy science fiction kind of like area. Um, I've had an internal battle with myself because I have a wonderful girlfriend that I live with here in Dallas, and she's kind of locked in with her job here in Texas. So if I wanted to take a job outside of Texas, it would really kind of cause a strain on our relationship. So I'm always having this turn up. Do I
Mm,
take a VFX job outside of the state
mm.
um, and chance that long term relationship?
Well,
Fortunately, there are a lot of jobs here in Texas, both in Austin and Dallas.
yes.
So I've been trying to adapt my style to kind of fit maybe in the id Software space with Doom or the Gearbox side with Borderlands. And then all these wonderful companies in Austin that are looking for visual effects artists. But as I've discovered, and maybe this is the sad truth, Jason, is that a lot of people want senior VFX artists and not so much junior. Yet there is a low supply of seniors and a high
Uh,
supply of juniors.
I always laugh at that because they're like, well, we really would like a senior. And I'm like, okay, good luck. I wish you well on your search. Um, the whole point of VFX Apprentice is to fix that dynamic so that it's like there's actually a lot of people available to do the work. Um, I mean, the number is growing already, right? Sort of naturally, people are figuring out that this is a thing. But yeah, like, I think you're right. Like, they look for seniors, and I understand why. It's because an effects artist needs to know a lot of things in order to be successful alone. And we typically do work alone. Like, we all too frequently work alone. And maybe there's one other effects artist, right? Like, it's us and the other person. But then in that dynamic, there's got to be a senior and a junior, because if they're both junior, then between the two of them, they're not going to know enough to get the job done on the project because there's just a lot to know. Um, but a more senior person can at least help that junior person through that process. So yeah, that's generally what's going on. I can't speak for every studio everywhere, but typically it's like, yeah, we need a senior person because no one else on the team knows how to get all the stuff done on a deadline, on a style, totally optimized. Talk to the engineers about what they need, talk to the game designers, talk to the art director, and manage all of that to make sure that the effects deliverable is what it needs to be, right?
Absolutely.
And a junior person is just going to get overwhelmed, rightfully so. Like no junior person could be expected to pull that off. So I get it. As a junior, you want to come in to a team where you're like exposed to that over time, and the senior artist or the lead sort of walks you through what's going on. And that's most easily done at a larger, more established studio where they have an infrastructure for that, where there's a couple other effects artists already on the team and a lead VFX artist, and they can onboard you to all of that. And after you've done that for a couple of years, you're ready to go on as a mid-level somewhere else. Or after you've done that for maybe 4 or 5 years, you might be ready to be a senior artist somewhere else. But that initial step of getting exposed to it in a production environment, I totally understand where studios are coming from, that they want that. I also kind of just smile because I know they're not going to be able to get it. I'm like, I wish you well. They might. I think eventually they might, but it's not easy. It's not easy
Right.
finding
And you'll
us.
see it in my reel when we look at it later. But for the majority of the time I've spent learning the field of visual effects, it's been in a vacuum. It's been separated from the rest of the production pipeline.
Hmm.
So not having context for your visual effects makes a big, big difference. When I joined these game jams and I worked with the team and I really kind of saw how those constraints, how those needs came together, it made such a difference in
Yep.
creating effects. Such a difference.
Yep. Having that experience is going to be really helpful for your portfolio. It will show in your portfolio because your effects will have purpose. They will have a context. They will have something to them that the the experienced person viewing your reel is going to understand. Oh, this person knows how to tell a little story. They know how to clearly define an AOE. Oh, like they've got it hooked up so that it's playing with scripts and all that stuff, or whatever that may be. So that'll really be nice. I think the biggest thing to worry about for now is just, is it well crafted? Do you have the art skills? Because when I'm looking for a junior artist on my team, always it's like, do they have the art skills? I can teach them the rest. They'll get up to speed on the production and all that, but teaching them the art fundamentals might be an impossible task if they don't already have it. Like they may never get it if they don't have it now, right? So getting that beforehand is massive.
I agree. And it was a hard hit to my pride earlier this week. I won't name it, but I did have an art test for a possible job. And they basically said, your Unreal skills are decent, but your art skills are still needing refinement. And you think you got it, but when somebody more senior kind of has that discerning eye and says, "No, no, you're not good enough yet,
Well, maybe
yet."
we can find out what they were talking about. So, going to this one first.
Yeah, so that's an individual effect. If you wanted to look at the portfolio, which includes the effect, it's the one right next to it. That
This
one
one.
right there. And there is sound if you wanted to mute it.
All right, good to know. All right. We'll just watch it one time through and then we'll replay. I'm guessing this is from the game jam.
Yes, sir.
It's pretty cool.
It's your first time seeing it?
Yeah, I've seen some of your work in the class, like the lightning bolt and some others, but
Oh,
this is
yeah.
the first time I'm seeing that your stuff outside of the class. So you're gonna get my raw reaction. All right. Okay, so On this one, I think I gave you notes on this one specifically in the class. So
I
I'll just
did see those.
kind of
Yeah.
restate generally what we're looking at here. So I think having these particles gather in a very straight line and then having it be a very chunky style afterwards where it impacts. Let's see, where's the impact? Nope, I missed it because it's so fast.
Fun trick that I was taught by Anthony Davis, who's another visual effects artist. If you actually push the comma and the period button, you can move it frame by frame,
Oh, there we go.
which
I
is
think I knew
amazing.
that at one point and I just keep forgetting which button it is. And I'll hit the over button and it like goes to the next video or something. Yeah, so going from the little bits to the big chunky bits is a disconnect for me. I think it's just a stylistic misstep, and finding a way to show static buildup that is also chunky or show electricity that is made up of smaller pieces or like more detailed would be the right way to transition that. I do like that you're starting to get the coloring brighter down here and then darker up top. That's starting to succeed more. So the bolt itself is getting better, but I think it's got too harsh of a fuzz on it, and it's not allowing the crisp edges to show enough. So it's just become really fuzzy.
Now, when you say fuzz, what are you referring to?
The glow. So the glow around it
Got it.
is so uh, prominent, and the core is like up here is actually more intense because the core is more saturated and like blown out versus the outer edge is a little bit more subtle, but even here they're kind of vibrating and fighting. So what I would expect down here would be the outer glow would be at its brightest somehow, and the inner would be like maybe a little more saturated, or maybe having it light is okay because this like light to dark is actually pretty good. But it's right now kind of still fighting. Yeah, especially where it's also transparent, like it's kind of a transparent blue, and so then it creates these weird shapes here that aren't working for me. So maybe playing with something other than transparency to get the electricity to hit the right hues is going to be good. Because when the background starts shining through, it hurts how this is feeling. It hurts its feelings,
Okay.
so to speak. Um, yeah, I think like static electricity in the air would be a better metaphor for the windup as opposed to bits coalescing. Okay, enough on that one. All right, so if you're going for more stylized stuff, I think this exercise is nice because it teaches you a lot of processes about like, you know, pre-rendered stuff brought in and then materials and things like that. It's not going to show as a super strong piece if you're applying to like a more stylized studio like Gearbox or like Airship Syndicate or some of the others in the Austin area, the Austin Dallas area. Um,
Yeah, I agree. I definitely saw that this generalist approach, kind of how you're just kind of like showcasing, oh, I can do this. Oh, I can do this. Oh, I can do this, isn't really kind of centering in, oh, but this is what we want to see most of, kind of
right,
mentality.
because they want to see you as plug and play. They want to see that you can do what they do from day one when you start on the job, and that you can do it really well across multiple things. So like, here's some water, here's some fire, here's some magic, here's some explosion, here's wind, here's whatever, right? Like that you can do a variety of things in their style from day one. So it decreases the risk that they're taking on by hiring you because they know, oh, Travis is going to be able to do it. We're confident. And that's how you pass the review process, right? So this stuff is great for the end of the reel because it's like you've convinced them through the first part of the reel that you can do what they do. And then bonus, you can also do this other stuff that maybe they're not doing right now that they're interested in maybe expanding into later, or it's just comforting to know that you're willing to learn new things and try other things. Like that's just bonus on top. Whereas you're just trying to showcase in the first part of your reel, like I can nail and crush anything that you present to me on your project. I think also like the timing on the fire could use some love. Like, so even like being well crafted in what it is, like the explosion itself is fine, but then the fire coming up is very evenly timed, and it's very popcorny. Like I can see a repeat of the same fire over and over again. So maybe some of them need to be wider, some of them need to be shorter. Um, Maybe have like an alternate fire that dissolves slightly differently, that kind of thing. If this is something that you wanted to flesh out to make it more impressive, I think there's room to be doing that. I think as these bits land, you know, uh, having like all right now, all the bouncing sparks kind of die at more or less the same time. Maybe there's some that like kind of skitter a little bit further and last a little bit longer. Just really varying up the timing on everything. The sparks that like kind of fly out in a cloud, they kind of all happen at the similar speed and arc. You know, you could really vary that up, and you'll see massive changes in how it feels by doing that. The smoke as well is pretty evenly timed.
Okay.
So just overall, it's just like a big timing pass on the whole thing. Yeah. All right. This guy running along. I mean, really charming smoke. I don't know that it shows super well in a portfolio. It shows that you worked on a group project. Both of these do, but the effects themselves, like if you wanted to, uh, really leave these towards the beginning of your reel, I think what you do now that the game jam's over is you go back and make you polish out the effects, flesh them out, make them what you want them to be for the style that you want, right? So that the effects shine is the coolest part of these sequences. So like these little dust poofs could be little flip books of dust disintegrating, and you could add like like little dash marks that kind of come up at an angle. So like little like um, radial fingers, that kind of like spike up from behind him, that tie in what he's done into these little poofs that have this nice little dissolve on them, something like that. This buff here, I'm guessing that's like a buff or like a portal or something. I mean,
Yeah, it gives him his arms. So when he picks it up, he gets
oh, it gives
arms.
him his arms.
And
Like,
then
that's funny. That's funny. He's collecting pieces. I like it. So, making this look like this nice, inviting, magical ambient thing. And you can find all kinds of reference on Pinterest of stuff to emulate or copy or be like, I want some kind of floating ambient buff. And how do you really flesh that out to be something really special to showcase, like, he's going to get his arms. This is a really big moment. And then when he touches it and gets it, have a nice big payoff of like, I have my arms, and this like sparkle comes off and stuff like that. So, because what's nice about this is it has a very clear gameplay goal, and you know exactly what it's supposed to be and what it's supposed to do and how important it is, and you can play off of that as the effects artist to make something really engaging and interesting for the player, very satisfying for the player. So any
cool.
questions on that? I'm kind of just zooming through everything.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Let's keep going.
Rapid fire, here we go. So this is like to showcase how special the wings are, I guess. Like, it's so cool that you have wings and you're
Yeah,
floating.
absolutely.
Like, really, you could play up the idea of air or wind or something like that, like the magicalness of it. Sparkles aren't really doing it for me. It kind of feels like off theme to what's happening. So something more like air based. You could still have some sparkles in there. It's like magical, but really the sparkles could animate in a more interesting way too. Maybe they have like a little blip to them, or like a little dissolve, or like even like they could just scale up and scale down in a more dynamic timing. So they just feel really like they have that personality to them, the charming sort of thing you're trying to do. Yeah. And this thruster, the hot spot on it needs to really be up at the jetpack. So right now, let's see if I can get back to where. Yeah. So right now the hot spot is down away from the jetpack. You really need to like shift it so that it's matching up with this and it feels integrated with the jetpack itself. And creating a second and third emitters that are like bursting out sort of erratically at the source. And then this here is sort of uniformly soft. So I would go into that texture and the material and the motion of it and get it so it has like sharp, jaggedy fingers to it that are traveling through that, right? So it's not, it doesn't feel just like a soft glow, but it has something pouring out of it, some kind of energy shimmering down the length of it, right? Whether that's like
Okay.
multiple particles spawning and like scaling in, or painting into the texture some kind of motion that animates or something like that. Would be good on that. Yeah, it looks like it's got like particles, right? Like fuzzy balls traveling down the length of it. But those fuzzy balls could have a little bit more shape definition to them, I think, which is tricky as it's coming into camera. So that's something to consider. Like, how do I get this to look right when it's coming at me? Maybe it's like little meshes that have spikes on them that scale in. And so they have a silhouette when looking at them, but they also have a silhouette when looking at it this way, you know,
Mm, okay.
like little somethings like that. Or you could still have the fuzzy glows to supplement it, but maybe tone it down so that the shapes inside can show through. I do like the colors on it though. I think it's got some cool burn off, like goes yellow to pink. That's pretty neat. All right. So the different things happening ambiently, I don't know how much you want to showcase those in your reel, because it's like environmental effects. Environmental effects are typically not the strongest showpieces. I guess a lot
Uh-huh.
of games have environment effects, but it's typically, if you can do a character effect really well, chances are good you're going to be just fine moving over to environment ambience and that kind of thing, because
Yeah.
the burden is much lower on that, to do like, it's sort of subtle, it's in the background, you can get away with more with it.
Right.
Some games are all about the environment effects, so just look at what studio you're applying to. Do they care a ton about their environment effects, or do they care more about their character effects? The stuff that you were listing, my what I gather from them is probably they care more about the character effects. So your
Hmm.
time is probably better spent in that area anyway.
Right.
All right. Looking over here, got like this ambient thing and then it explodes. If it's definitely a style mismatch to do the simulation explosion,
Yeah.
because everything is so simple in this, and so it just feels out of place. Maybe replacing that with a nice simplified toon shader cartoony type of explosion would be really good. Okay.
Yeah, and I guess like from my perspective, a lot of it was let's focus. I know this is a bad thing to say, but I think it's worth saying. Let's focus on quantity over quality. Let's just get new stuff out there, to show that I'm actually doing stuff and I'm not just not doing stuff.
Yeah.
But
Well, I
I
think,
guess the lesson here is always show your best work, right?
yeah, I mean, hey, I think doing a lot of stuff is critical for you. I think it's critical for your growth to just keep doing more projects. And yeah, I would never want you to get bogged down just polishing something to death, because like you do grow from polishing for sure. Like I think that's a good exercise. But if all you ever do is polish, it can be exhausting and it can be discouraging because you feel like you're not accomplishing much. Whereas I think doing tons of projects definitely does help you grow if you're always trying something new. The danger is if you're doing all these projects and you're using the same techniques for all of them. So you're like, I know how to do this. I'm just going to use what I know and then I'm going to get it done. You're actually not learning anything, right? You're now just on an
Hmm.
assembly line for the automatic parts of your brain that are easy, and you're staying inside your comfort zone. You can only
Yeah.
learn by going out of your comfort zone. So I would say, yes, it's great to keep doing more projects, even if they're not polished, as long as you're stretching yourself too. So just kind of watch yourself on that. Like, make sure you're not using it as an excuse to just stay in your comfort zone. Because I do this, I do that. I'm like, yep, I know how to do 2D flip books. I'm just going to use that again and again and again and again. And then I'm never learning how to do materials. Right. So
Yeah.
that was something that I actually at some point had to come to the hard realization, I need to learn materials. And that's what got me to go in and learn that technique. And now my craft is all the better for it. So definitely stay on yourself. Don't let yourself just get complacent with all these projects.
Hmm.
And then you'll see a growth. You'll definitely see growth if you're like, okay, yeah, it's time to move on to something else. But what am I going to do that's new and challenging in this new project?
Hmm.
For sure, for sure. Super cool. You got the
And this was
rotating
a
noise.
this was a big passion project for one of the contests that we did on Fireworks. I wanted to recreate the Epcot experience in Disney World, so I just put together a light show. A lot of these things are repeats, but um, that's what it was.
Cool. I like the timing on these taller ones, how they kind of come up and then they slow down before exploding. It's really nice. They come up and then they explode. I think these ones, I mean, they look like fireworks. It's a success. You could probably do something with these lasers that would be a little more. I don't know. Is that exactly what they do at Epcot?
So I was trying to figure out how to create like volumetric like spotlights, I guess. So in this example, I don't think this is maybe the best technique, but I just created a cylinder mesh and I just attached a color gradient to it. So that's what you're looking at there. It's just a cylinder mesh that's stretched out with a color gradient on it.
Yeah, I
But I
think.
wasn't sure how you would like replicate a spotlight in a video game. That was something I was struggling with.
Well, it depends if the spotlight is ever going to shine right at you. If it's not going to
Hmm.
shine at you, I think you use the right technique. Works great. If it's ever going to shine in your face, then that's where it gets tricky. Uh, you could, yeah, you could just have like a card at the end of it on the spotlight that is very, very bright. So like it kind of feels like correct when it's shining at you because then you can see the light at the end of it around the
Hmm.
cylinder. You can also use like sphere masking so that you lose the edges of it, or a Fresnel so that you lose the edges of it as it like points at the camera.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, there's a few different ways, or you could use real volumetrics, not real volumetrics, but like in-game volumetrics where it actually
Right.
does that. I know Unreal has technology for that. That's pretty fancy that you can implement as well. So, yeah, I think generally, let's see. So looking at everything holistically, I think you're well on your way. I mean, you definitely have the foundational skills that you need to put together really any particle system that you would need to put together. The key is going to be really nailing those artistic skills. The skills of like timing, composition, color, uh, getting the shapes to play nicely together, and in your compositions, like getting them more fleshed out so that all the emitters work together and they don't either fight against each other or there's nothing missing. Like, the jet fuel is a great example where it's like right now it's missing something that's coming out of the jetpack that would create that bigger trail. And I just think spending the time on any one of these to get the composition to sort of sing together would be what I would hope to see next from you.
Yeah, for sure. I have one question. I know we're kind of going over time,
That's
but it's
fine.
been really suggested taking on that really famous art book by Joseph Gilligan, The Elemental Magic, I think is
Yeah.
what it's called.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I know I bought it last year, and I've worked through pieces, but just kind of like so I can learn more about how to apply that book to my visual effects. Do you have any advice you can share on that?
Hmm. I think the biggest thing is that you can get from that book would be drawing. So practice drawing the shapes that are in those books, right? In that book, he has 2 volumes of it, but the second volume is fine. But you really only need the first volume, in my opinion, to get going. Um,
Hmm.
I think just draw the shapes in a sketchbook with a pen and just feel it out. You know, feel out the forms of the fire and the shapes of the explosions, and then the ripples of the water and all of that. And you'll find, as you go through that mental exercise, these are not portfolio pieces that you're creating, but what you're doing is you're activating parts of your brain that are going to allow you to uh, vastly improve in this part of your work. So, like, you're going to start to understand the flow of things, and you're going to imagine in your brain, as you're drawing it, you're going to imagine how it moves and how it can transition and where it must have come from and where it's going, and how the timing is different in one phase of the animation versus another, because he does a good job of laying out frame by frame the different phases of things. And you're really going to benefit from all of that. So yeah, I would
Thank you.
say draw the stuff in there that you see, and then start practicing all of that in your
Yeah.
work. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Cool, man.
Yeah. Very
Well,
cool.
Jason, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and chat with me today. I feel like I learned a lot about myself and my artwork and directions I need to go with next steps. So yeah, it's been a really great treat.
I'm glad it was a benefit for you. Thank you so much for spending time here. This has been great, and
Of
good luck in
course.
your adventure.
Thanks.
All right, we'll see you later.
Bye bye.
Bye.